Welcome to the Joint Committee on Tourism, Small Business, Information, and Technology. This is meeting number 5. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Senator Boswell, Senator Funky Fromeyer, Senator Gardler, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Howell, Senator Mills, Senator Storm,
Here.
Senator Thomas, Senator Wheeler, Senator Wilson, Representative All,
Here.
Representative Baker, Representative Dotson, Representative Pfister,
Here.
Representative Frazier Gordon,
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Freeland, Representative Fugit, Representative Grossberg,
Present.
Representative Heath,
Here.
Representative Kulkarni,
Here.
Representative Lawrence,
Why, yes.
Representative Maddox,
Here.
Representative Massaroni,
Here.
Representative McPherson,
Here.
Representative Pollock, Representative Reed,
Here.
Representative Roberts,
Here.
Representative Stalker,
Present.
Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present.
Representative Tate, Representative Timoney, Representative Truitt, Representative Wesley, Representative White, Representative Wilson, Representative Witten, Co-Chair Wise, Co-Chair King,
Present.
Co-Chair Pratt.
Present. Okay, we've got a quorum. At this point in time, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes for our last meeting.
Motion on minutes.
I got a second? Thank you. So passed. Okay, let's get right down to business. All right, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to have Kenergy go last. They have graciously agreed to. But first we have tax policy on small business health insurance. Would you please come up and introduce yourself for the record, and please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tom Underwood. I'm the State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. It's the largest small business group in the United States, and we have thousands of Main Street mom and pop businesses are members. Our typical members have 3 to 5 employees, so we're talking about the real, true entrepreneurs down there. Today, I'd like to talk to you about inequity in treatment of small business. But I have to start with a little history lesson to put it all in context. The General Assembly passed House Bill 250, known as the Kentucky Healthcare Reform Act of 1994. This was a massive overhaul of Kentucky's healthcare system. It was remarkably similar to the 1993 Clinton Health Security Act proposal that was championed by the then First Lady. With the passage of House Bill 250, with its guaranteed issue, mandatory uniform health insurance policies and regulations from the newly created Kentucky Health Policy Board, the changes proved to be too much for health insurance providers in Kentucky. 40 health insurance companies fled the market, and leaving only 2 alternatives. In 1998, the creation of the Guaranteed Access Program, which is known as GAP, was created to subsidize premiums for high-cost individuals, and it was based on high-cost individuals with guaranteed issue. This was funded by a tax on health insurance premiums, tobacco settlement funds, and a provider tax on doctors and hospitals. As House Bill 250 crumbled under political pressure, GAP then evolved into Kentucky Access, another version of a high-risk pool. That pool operated from 2001 to 2013. At that point, Kentucky Access was no longer needed because of the Federal Affordable Care Act and expansion of Medicaid eligibility. Kentucky Access then morphed into a funding source for programs such as Connect, the state health insurance network. While the GAP program and the original Kentucky Access program are no longer needed to care for high-risk individuals, logic would lead us to believe that the tax assessed on insurance premiums would go away. That is not the case. Health insurance premiums are still being taxed on gross at 1%. Now, that doesn't sound a lot when you say 1%, but with the spiraling cost of health insurance over the years, this is a dramatic effect, particularly on small business and individuals. In KRS 304-17B-21 sub 11, there is a listing of those that are exempt from the tax. The exemptions include federal, state, and local public employee programs, Medicaid recipients, Medicare beneficiaries, military CHAMPUS insureds, and all ERISA qualified self-insured plans. ERISA program plans are typically for large corporations and unions to create their own programs that are exempt from most government mandates. So who does that leave to pay the tax? The only people left are small business and individuals. KRS 304-17A-005 sub 45, I'm practicing to be a lawyer, but I don't think it's going to work out, defines a small group as a small employer with 2 to 50 employees. The definition of individual is obvious. The concern I bring to you today is a matter of tax equity. Section 59 of the Kentucky Constitution prohibits special legislation creating disparity in the treatment of similar groups. Section 171 of the Kentucky Constitution says taxes shall be levied and collected for public purposes only and shall be uniform upon all property of the same class. Small business and individuals have now paid this tax for 30 years as health insurance premiums continue to skyrocket. Healthcare is a societal problem. Any taxes levied for that purpose should apply to all or to none. We ask for equitable treatment for small business and the individuals across the state. I have some historical references here if anybody would like to see them after from 3 different viewpoints. Health insurance reform in the 1990s, a Kentucky historical perspective written by the Department of Insurance, 96 pages of scintillating reading. Kentucky's experience with high-risk pools shows dangers of ACA repeal. That's an analysis from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy that goes through the failures of House Bill 250. The Kentucky healthcare experiment, how managed competition clamps down on choice and competition. This report came from the Heritage Foundation in 1997, authored by Rachel McCubbin. And it too gives a perspective on what happened during the healthcare period of the 90s. 3 different perspectives, all basically coming to the same conclusion that the program did not work. So, our only concern is that we be treated equitably under the law. And with that, I will be glad to entertain any questions that the committee may have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
Thank you, sir, for informative comment. We do have some questions. Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tom. Over to your right.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
No,
didn't recognize you from
I don't
birthday.
recognize myself.
The
It's
birthday.
okay. It's all right. Thank you for being here this morning or this afternoon now. Do you have a ballpark on that 1% of gross would be and the overall tax expenditure if the exemptions were paying? Do you happen to have those numbers?
I do not have those numbers. I do have a bill draft with analysis that was created by the A&R staff last year. It did not include a fiscal impact statement, but it should be easy to get as it is a revenue source coming in and accounted for. And I apologize for not having that.
No apology needed. I'll do some homework. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Next, we have Rep. All.
Well, Representative King asked half of my questions, so I appreciate that very much. I'd like to know how much total revenue we're talking about with that 1%. And then specifically that revenue, is it directly allocated to a certain funding source, or does it go just generically into the general fund?
It's kind of hard to trace, and I haven't been able to figure it out, but GAP is still on the books, which then has Kentucky Access still on the books. But since the money's not going to where they were initially intended, the best I can find is a portion of the money is subsidizing the Connect program. But I have not got the answer on where all of it's going.
Could we ask the Department of Finance or Department of Revenue or Department of Insurance, one of the 18 departments that this thing touches, to find out exactly, do a forensic audit of how much money and where the money is going and what it's funding?
I would love that opportunity to get that information. And if that would be done, I would suggest it come from the LRC, the request, so they can get all the documents. I would probably forget to ask for some.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Again, a lot of us in here are small business owners. And again, I will tell you that we forewarned our employees the other day that our health insurance is going up somewhere between 5 to 7% this year, and that's with us shopping it. And so as benefits keep going down, costs keep going up, you keep wondering why are we doing that. And also, as a point of privilege, I am an NFIB member, so proud member of it. And I thank you guys for all the advocacy you do for small businesses, because again, we do a lot of times wind up getting the short end of the stick. We're the ones who pay the higher rates on everything. And thank you guys for looking at that. So I also look forward to see that legislation that will level the playing field for everybody.
I would welcome that opportunity to work with sponsors and co-sponsors on that. And once again, my point is not about the money. It's not about the programs. It's not that. It's about equity. Everybody should pay or nobody should pay. So that's where I hope we get to. And once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony today, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to change it up, and I would try to say your name, but we're going to have to talk about the future of AI. Introduce yourself for the record, because I guarantee you I will slaughter your name, sir. Sorry about that. But look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Is this
Turn the green button on, lights up.
I'm supposed to be an engineer and a computer scientist, so if I can't figure it out. They do say audiovisual is the hardest part. AI is easy.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Introduce yourself for the record, please, sir.
Absolutely, we'll do that. So I'm Roman Yampolsky. I have a PhD in computer science and engineering. I am a tenured professor at one of the major Commonwealth universities, but I'm speaking as a citizen, as a Kentuckian. Let's see if I can get to that slide. So standard disclaimer, my employer is not responsible for all the things I'll share with you. Just trying to inform you about state of the art in AI. I'm not a lobbyist. I don't think it's a partisan issue. I don't have a specific agenda for you. I just want to let you know what I think is happening. And I was told I have about 10 minutes to tell you about 10 years of my research, so that should be awesome. Well over a decade ago, based on nothing but growth in computational power, predictions were made about how soon we'll have computers as capable as one human brain, multiple human brains, all of humanity, really. And interestingly, the predictor, Dr. Ray Kurzweil, who's an engineer at Google, said that around 2023, we'll have computational capacity to emulate one human brain. Idea being, if you can emulate it, you can get performance similar to what we see from a human brain. So let's see if that happened. In spring of this year, a program was released. I think many of you had a chance to play with it, called GPT-4 by OpenAI, which in many domains is as capable of...
Excuse me, sir. Can you pull your mic a little bit closer, please?
I can move myself closer.
Some of us are hard hearing like me.
Okay, is this better? Awesome. So GPT-4 is better than many people in many domains, greater than some in other domains. It's not a general intelligence. It's not better than all humans in all domains yet. But on kind of standard tests and measures, things like law exam, medical exam, GRE, AP exams, it tends to score very, very well. Sometimes 99th percentile of those are usually very smart individuals, graduate students, so well above average for humans. And this is what we have right now, and it's getting better and better. I took half a day off to come here. It's probably likely that something new has been developed and I'm completely out of date and state of the art in AI. So this is where we are today already. This is not futuristic projections. This is the systems we have today, connected to internet, capable of accessing all sorts of other software to assist you with your work. So interesting question is, of course, what happens next? If you believe predictions from people running top AI labs, whatever it's DeepMind at Google, Anthropic, they are saying we are likely to get what is known as artificial general intelligence within 2 to 3 years, meaning a system as smart as any of us in all domains. It can learn new skills, it can do anything a human can do, so obviously amazing impact on economy, free labor, physical, cognitive, but in 2 to 3 years. If you don't believe leaders of the labs, they might have some personal interest. We can look at prediction markets. Prediction markets are people betting on outcomes of future events. There we're looking at maybe 4 years, 5 years until AGI. I don't think it makes a huge difference. Let's just say this may happen very soon. This technology is coming. And I think it's good to kind of think about what that means. Also, this is GPT-4. You can look at previous versions of this software, GPT-3, GPT-2. They usually get exponentially better. So what do we expect from GPT-5 is exactly that, artificial general intelligence systems capable of doing high-level intellectual work in most domains. You are a legislative body. You are trying to control humans, which are by definition human-level intelligences with laws and regulations. We don't have an equivalent for controlling AI systems. In fact, we don't even know if it's possible, whatever it's AGI as in human level, or something called superintelligence, systems which are smarter than all humans in all domains, which is very likely to happen, as with narrow domains we already see computers become superintelligent in chess and Go, in many other well-defined domains. Many of you probably saw Jeopardy, where that was illustrated. So we expect to have super intelligent systems soon. And the state of the art in science is we don't even know if we can solve this problem, much less claiming that we have working safety mechanisms in place or even prototypes for such mechanisms. I'm not the only one who feels that the problem may be unsolvable. If you look at latest work, again, at some of those top labs, Anthropic calls it pessimistic scenarios, where, they say that we are possibly not capable of controlling systems of such capability. And they are not putting a specific number on it. They're saying, well, it's one of the possibilities. Maybe it's a hard problem, but we can solve it. Maybe it's an easy problem, but we'll get there. But there is, let's say, 15% chance that we're in this universe where this is impossible to happen. And they are asking this, what is this probability for you? You are intelligent people. Do you think it's possible to indefinitely control super intelligent agents? And that's, of course, very important for making sure they are fitting in with our social structure, legal structure, economic structure, and not causing significant damage, including existential risk. My research over the last couple of years is full-time trying to figure out this very question. Can we control more advanced types of software, artificial intelligence? The way I see it is you need a toolbox of capabilities to do it. You need to understand how they work. You need to be able to predict decisions they would make, verify if software actually matches designs, be able to unambiguously communicate with those systems, and many similar things, but you get the general gist. And for each one of those tools, I'm trying to understand, can we have that tool? Is that something we can actually code up? And it seems there are strong limitations on those capabilities. We cannot fully understand how the systems work. We're talking about millions, billions of connected nodes with weights. We may analyze a specific neuron and realize it targets certain visual pattern or sound pattern, but we don't understand how they fully work. We don't really have an alternative other than looking at a model as a whole, and a model is too complex to comprehend. So both explainability of those models and comprehensibility to a human brain is limited. They are black boxes. Similarly, we cannot predict what a smarter system would do. If you could, you would be that smart. If you could predict what a chess opponent does for every future move, you're playing at that level. So there are limits to our ability to predict precisely what a smarter agent would do. We can figure out general direction, but we cannot anticipate specific moves. There are limits on verifying code, verifying mathematical proofs. Basically, all software has bugs. You can invest a lot of resources to reduce amount of those bugs, but you can never fully get rid of them. Probabilistically, there is still always a chance that the system is making a mistake. And if a system is making billions of decisions every minute, you are basically guaranteed to have accidents and problems. Communication is also a problem. Human language is notoriously ambiguous. When you write laws, clever lawyers usually find some sort of a way to avoid following the law as intended. Here we're talking about a super intelligent lawyer who would find any imprecise, ambiguous language in the orders and ethical and moral guidelines for those systems. So overall, the conclusion I'm coming to is that it's impossible to indefinitely control superintelligent systems. They will always find a way to bypass our best safety mechanisms, either through directly hacking software, through manipulating their human handlers, through blackmail, through bribery, or simply by being smarter than us and doing things we cannot predict because they are unpredictable. So there is this trade-off between capability and control. We have very good narrow systems which allow us to do things like solve protein folding problem, for example, a major medical breakthrough, but which are not general. They are not AGI, they are not superintelligence, and so we can get the benefits of this technology without the risk of having systems we cannot control. I gave you a quick summary of some of the more interesting limiting results, but there are many. In fact, recently we published a paper with some 50 impossibility results in this space. I don't anticipate you to read this. It's not a fun read, but the point is that there is a lot we don't know and a lot which is likely simply impossible to ever overcome in terms of limits to control on this technology. I'm not the only one, as I said. We were successful at publishing some of these ideas in major journals, books, but also in places like Time magazine. The idea that superintelligent systems may be uncontrollable. Others agree, from founding father of computer science and AI, Alan Turing, to more recent researchers and developers such as Elon Musk. There is a growing concern and a growing consensus that superintelligence may be uncontrollable. This is the 10 slides I had. Hopefully I made the 10-minute mark, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have about this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Actually, this came about, I want to give kudos to Representative Grossberg. We had a group come on and tell us how great it was and what a great thing it was, but I think it's important to hear both sides. And we do have some questions, believe it or not, which I thought it would probably generate some conversation. First off the bat, we have Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman Pratt. Is it Yampolsky? Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yampolsky, first of all, let me say I'm glad that Representative Pratt or Chairman Pratt asked you to come here today because, as I've said to many of my members, my caucus in particular, I think this is the most important issue that lawmakers across the country must address and deal with in 2024. And I know Congress had a similar committee meeting about 2 weeks ago. The problem with that committee meeting was they had all big tech representatives there, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon. Obviously, those that had a financial interest in seeing AI developed and expanded. And I'm always reminded that as elected officials in government, there are only three responsibilities we have, only three. And that first one is to maintain the safety and security of our citizens. That's our number one task, okay? And so I'm glad that we have someone doesn't have a financial interest coming to talk to us today about our AI. I want to emphasize that. I'm highly concerned when you say that this is an entity, a process that can't be controlled, because the last thing I want to have on my legacy is that we're creating a Frankenstein here that's going to destroy our society. I don't think we can let that happen. And you're right, that is not partisan at all. So I'm looking for ways in which, obviously, we can use AI for its good, but we don't want to have it created so that some monster can come along and create a process or a software or a system that's going to destroy us. So can you address that question? Because I think that's really the $64,000 question here that we lawmakers across this country have to address going into 2024.
You want me to solve the problem?
I want you to give us and give me some ideas of what we can do to control it, or if we can't, maybe we should just not have it at all.
So, as I said, I don't want to suggest specific legislation in any way, but it seems that there is a lot of untapped economic potential in existing technology. A system like GPT-4 can be studied and deployed for the next 50 years, growing our economy exponentially. We don't have to create super intelligence for the next 2 years, 5 years. There is not a pressing need for that. It's often speculated that we have to do it or the bad guys get there first and then it's worse. If it's uncontrolled, it doesn't matter who has super intelligence first, whether it's Kentucky, US, China, it's the same result, right? You're not controlling it, it's an independent agent. So it's good if there is self-interest from those companies to not destroy the world, and themselves included, if they are encouraged by the government to limit capabilities. There was a call for a pause, 6-month pause in development of more capable systems than GPT-4, but it was based on 6 months. Why? It's an arbitrary number, means nothing. You have to request same type of moratorium based on capabilities. Until you can show that your system is not a black box, we can understand how it works, we can predict what it does, all the impossibility results I mentioned are addressed and solved, then you can go ahead and deploy a more capable system, because now we have some assurance that it meets safety and security standards you can set.
Thanks, sir. All right, next we have Representative Baker.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for being here to share this with us today. AI is a great tool, but it can also be a very evil thing, and you know that far better than I do. One of my concerns is the idea that you could use that to make an image, a likeness, or replicate a voice of a living person. I see some issues with that going forward, and how that could be used in nefarious ways. Are there other issues, and this may be very similar to Senator Thomas's question, other issues that you perhaps foresee that could create problems for us down the road with AI?
Many. I don't want to give any ideas, but luckily I'm not super intelligent. So what you're asking is what I would do to cause problems. I'm not super intelligent. The system would come up with much better things. Deep fakes are a big problem. The way this technology works, you have two neural networks competing, one generating fakes, one trying to detect them. They meet in the middle. It's a 50-50, so you can't figure out if it's real or not. This technology can be used for spear phishing attacks at unprecedented scale. Instead of tailoring a single email for one individual by studying their social media, I can now target millions of accounts. I can create a video of someone you trust, your chairman, your spouse, telling you, hey, send some money, give me your password. Even experts would click on such a link, agree to such a request. But this is not the worst. You have systems which are doing science now, doing research, for example, in chemistry or biology. So we're talking about COVID 2.0. You can design new viruses. You can design chemical weapons. You can design all sorts of tools for hacking important cyber infrastructure, power plants, nuclear response, military response. There is really, with general systems smarter than humans, you are not limited by any set of restrictions other than how creative the system is, how much it can exploit human psyche.
Thank you. May I ask a follow-up, please?
Yes, sir.
So obviously that's very concerning. Thank you. it's one thing to try to create laws and put safeguards in place to keep me or you or someone else from doing that. I don't have the knowledge or capacity to do it myself. But when you're talking about being uncontrollable, if we could put laws in place to keep me from doing it or to punish me from doing things wrongfully, at some point, are you saying that regardless of what I do over time, it can just generate some of those things themselves within the system?
The cost of training the next model becomes less and less with time. Hardware becomes more capable. Today, it may cost $100 million. Tomorrow, it's 10 million, 1 million. Eventually, any teenager in a garage in their laptop can generate human-level equivalent model. It's like personal nuclear weapons. There is not much you can do with legislation. The joke I kind of make is we're going to make it illegal to destroy humanity, and there are steep fines for doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't enforce something like that. And to enforce, meaningfully enforce any legislation, you should be able to monitor deployment and training of those systems. And there are impossibility results related to that. Until we train the model, we don't really know what it's capable of. So if they are training GPT-5 right now, I'm not saying they are, but something like that, until it is trained and studied, we don't even know if it's already beyond human capacity or not. We still discover things about GPT-4. Till this day, people go, oh, it can play this new musical instrument or something. It is a very understudied area, and I think a lot of times with legislation, we pass feel-good legislation. Spam is illegal, computer viruses are illegal, but at the end they get both. Yes. So as long as it takes $1 billion worth of compute, a major Manhattan project size effort, you can regulate it. You know where the centers are, you know who has the chips. If it becomes more affordable, it's unlikely to succeed through governance.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Representative Grossberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for indulging me by bringing this guest today. I wasn't sure how it would work out, but I'm glad to say I think it's working out well. And I would like to thank you for joining us today. To put it in context for everyone, you and I have had a number of meals together where you create a level of panic in me that there's not a person in the General Assembly who can create. But at the same time, I feel the need to point out that you have 3 small children. You are investing in their smallish, investing in their education and still investing in your own retirement. And I asked you about that, and you told me it's because you're not certain. So I think it's important for everyone to know that even the most catastrophic predictions still allow for a future that's worth living. One time I asked you to put in context, like, how big of a deal is this? Is this like the discovery of electricity, or is this like the first automations? And you told me I've got to think bigger, that the last time humanity has embarked on something this revolutionary and this much of a game changer, it would either be the discovery of fire or the discovery of language. So just to put it in context for everyone, that's how big what we're looking at is. But I'm glad to hear from my colleagues here that everyone sees this as either a bipartisan or a nonpartisan issue. It's not an us versus them. It's all of us together to make sure that the professor is not wasting his time and energy educating his kids and investing in his own retirement. The biggest part of that, when I asked you, why is this so much bigger to you than chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons proliferation and all the concerns that existed over the last 60, 70 years, you told me in 2 words, or actually it's 3, it's tool versus agent. That all of those are concerns about a tool, a weapon that needs to be harnessed and deployed by a person, versus this is the first time that there will be an agent that can be self-acting, that, to use the metaphor of Dr. Frankenstein, once released, may not be able to be controlled. And on top of that, we, myself included, have a tendency to use the word evil, that I don't want to release an evil technology. And you reminded me that technology is neither moral nor immoral, it's amoral. So what we can't do is regulate the technology. We can regulate what people can do towards researching or deploying that technology. And with that, one of the articles you had me read was, I believe it was 6 different scenarios, worst case scenarios, that you perceive as being likely to happen if we don't do anything. And I encourage the rest of you to read it. And let's just say that The Matrix looks not bad in comparison to some of these. And when I asked you how do we get there, you gave me a couple simple examples. You know, if someone who wants to be a lone wolf terrorist gets their hand on this technology and says, destroy the financial systems, this actor, not the person, but the software, is smarter than every single person working in every financial institution and every computer programmer combined, and has a head start and could probably achieve it. If someone intended something good and didn't have the proper protocols, you gave me the example of COVID comes back stronger or a new superbug, and someone tells AI, solve it so that no one more gets COVID. Well, the easiest way to make sure no one more gets COVID would be to kill all humans. And if you don't put in the proper parameters in the programming, that will happen. And then you gave me another example that if you told it we want to explore further in the universe and need bigger satellites and bigger telescopes, that without the proper parameters, the AI would say, well, these humans have precious metals in their bloodstreams and in their cells. Let's just digest the entire Earth, including all humans, and convert everything on Terra Major to a massive satellite system. So those are just a few of what sound like outlandish examples. But as you pointed out, we don't know what superintelligence can and will do because we are not superintelligent. So the thing that you said you're not going to do, but I'm going to put you on the spot, is you said you're not a policymaker. Well, we are, and you identifying for us these problems has been extremely valuable. But the question I have for you is, if in that magical world where you didn't make fun of me for being a policymaker on a regular basis and you were one of us, what is it precisely that you would do? What, as a parent of 3 mostly small children, is it that you're asking of us besides just generally study AI and its dangers?
A wonderful question. I feel like I should have put more disclaimers about hazardous information into my presentation with you listing all of them. As I said, I bring problems. I don't have solutions. If you can create an incentive structure where it is better for those companies and leaders to monetize their existing tech as opposed to trying to win that arms race to be there first. Right now, I think Google DeepMind is releasing a product maybe in December, Gemini, that is a response from OpenAI. So before we said, oh, it's going to be 2 years, it's too soon, now we're saying, let's release it tomorrow, we don't have time to test it, or they're going to beat us. If there is anything you can do to make incentives work and whoever does it slowest and safest wins, then we all possibly might win. But I am not optimistic that you can beat industry in terms of timelines and deployment. To say something very nice and positive, so Representative Grossberg is my biggest success story. Nobody ever changes their mind on anything than presented with new information and evidence. He went from making fun of me and my silly Terminator scenarios to actually taking it seriously. So I would applaud that.
Thank you. All right, next is Rep. Kulkarni.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Yampolsky, for being here, and good to see you again. I had the privilege earlier this summer of being on a panel with you discussing exactly this question and the scenarios. You also had a very limited amount of time then to present your entire body of knowledge and research. I want to briefly just maybe clarify, I think, for some of our committee members and for myself. We tend to talk about AI as if it's some distinct and discrete entity that exists over here that we can do things to or control or not control, or that is itself going to do something on its own, like it's separate and apart, as opposed to a model that we are currently training, right, in terms of its intelligence and its ability to think. So I wanted to clarify also that there is some scope. There are various scenarios, as you say. One of the comments I made was that all of this, so OpenAI, all of the generative image generating software, all of the things that we are able to input our questions and our concerns and, you know, just trying it out, ChatGPT, are taking all of that information and training these models, right? And they're all owned by private companies, which is, to your point, the only way we can control the speed at which this accelerates, this model adapts and learns. So in terms of laws, we've got laws for intellectual property, to Representative Baker's point, protecting identities, protecting likenesses. But if it gets to a certain point, laws won't matter anymore, is what you're saying to us. So at this point, hopefully, before we've gotten there, before that tipping point, I wanted to ask you, is for instance, OpenAI is one of the things on your slides, is the way to control this? You mentioned incentivizing private companies to slow down, do it safely, do it in a more sustainable way so that we don't destroy ourselves. Is that possible to do even now? So with the models and the platforms that they have developed, is it too late to slow that down? Do they have enough input right now to just proceed on their own? Is that the question that is unanswered?
They likely do, but we have no chance other than to try. We have no alternatives. You correctly said that what we deal with right now is mostly tools. We train those models, we can shut them off. But the switch to that agenthood, where they are independent, is what they are talking about in the next 2 to 4 years. So that's not a lot of time, and we have to get it right on a first try. We're not going to get a second chance, third chance. A lot of times in cybersecurity, somebody hacks the system, you reset passwords, you reissue credit cards, you get to try again. This is not like that. Superintelligence safety is very different from standard cybersecurity. So again, a lot of those things are unlikely to work out, but doing nothing is still strictly worse.
Right. Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. I also, on that same slide, so I'm an attorney. I took the LSAT, and I took it because I'm terrible at math, and the LSAT was more about logic. So I've noticed that it is scoring, for instance, in this exam slide that you have, in the 88th percentile for LSATs. It didn't do so well in English language and composition. Does that mean anything? Is that some way to possibly slow it down where it's not so good at processing certain thought patterns or learning certain things, as opposed to calculus and things that are rote memorization?
It is still not a general intelligence. We are still much better in many, many ways. We are still in charge today. I think with specific exams on that slide, some are more, how can I say it, they have actual answers as opposed to opinions on how a poem feels. So it's easier to grade accurately, whereas humans may have a bias towards human-generated outputs of certain kind.
So it's not indicative necessarily of anything?
I don't think poetry will save us.
Okay.
For a while, we hoped that art and poetry is what we're going to do, then we have complete technological unemployment. But in a surprising twist, computers learned to do that first.
Great.
So right now we are still plumbers and janitors, and they are writing poetry.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Representative Stalker.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So here is what, this is a little bit of a comment, a little bit of a question. So just want to give you the heads up. Let's work through this together. Here's what I'm concerned about is I know that there was an article, I think, put out by Forbes that indicated something about 300 million jobs that were going to be lost or degraded just within the United States and Europe because of AI. And what I wonder about is, you know, what kind of time frame do we, let's just focus here in Kentucky and the state that we're focused in, what do we have to look forward to from a time frame perspective? And coupled with that, something that I think is important for this body to think about is that we often, other states do the same thing, we like to invite companies to come in and set up shop here and not tax them properly and give them all sorts of, breaks with the, trade-off and expectation that there will be jobs created for our people, Kentuckians here. And what I worry about is the fact that folks will come in and, only to lose, for Kentuckians to lose their jobs shortly, after in the near future because AI is replacing them. So anything that you can say in response to that, I'd be curious to hear.
So it used to be there was two concerns, short-term concerns and long-term concerns. Short-term was things like technological unemployment. Will we lose jobs? And, existential risk, suffering risk was 20 years away. We don't have to worry about it. But looking at predictions for capabilities, it actually may have switched, where we'll have systems capable of generating dangerous chemical weapons in 2 years, but it takes 5-10 years to deploy existing technology to actually replace workers. Today, we have AI capable of replacing anyone in food service, essentially. It's not beyond capabilities, both in terms of taking orders and actually cooking food. There is automation, human-like robots capable of doing that. But it takes time to deploy, to train, to really make it happen. So it's interesting that maybe what was long-term concerns are actually overtaking those short-term considerations. If you get human-level intelligence, AGI, then all cognitive labor is automatable, no exception. If we deploy robots like what Boston Dynamics, so now Tesla is creating humanoid robots, same goes for physical labor. You can automate all jobs. If we take it to extreme for superintelligence, we have nothing to contribute to a superintelligence. You're not smarter, you're not funnier, you're not a better poet. What happens at that stage? There are risks to our existence, existential risks, and then there are risks to what we call ikigai risks, a word for meaning. It will take the meaning away from us, purpose. Why do we even exist? You're not contributing anything. You're not a legislator, you're not a lawyer, you're not a teacher.
All right. Next, we have Rep. Dodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Dr. Yampolsky. I tell you what, I so admire you. I wish I had just 1,000th of the understanding and knowledge that you have about stuff like this. And the way you speak so intelligently about the matter is very, very humbling for me. But just to piggyback off of what Representative Baker has said about protecting image and likeness, that is so concerning, because you can take AI, and I'll show you a little example, and it's worth mentioning. And you could take a politician, take any one of us, and put us in a KKK rally. You know what I'm saying? And make us look bad. I mean, it's not just us, but protecting the individual. I mean, AI is so advanced now, they could take our voice and say something that we didn't say. So when you think about these things, that can be very intimidating going forward. And it's just like with the firestorm that's going on in Washington, D.C. with Senator Fetterman. Him coming dressed a certain way, and it's just a firestorm going on. Well, a major entity on Twitter had put out this picture of Rand Paul coming and sitting on the Senate steps and sitting there in his robe and just looking all casual. And it's kind of funny to look at, but it looked like it was a little out of character. So we reached out to Senator Paul's office, and they said, no, that was created by AI. Because we want to know, is that really him? And it's funny. But that can be so potentially dangerous. I mean, honestly, you could create a video of someone with AI, make them a pedophile if you want to. I'm just trying to throw some things out there that you could look at and just say, what can we do now before this gets out of control, before it snowballs to the place that it can be? And so that is my concern. We need to protect our people. I mean, if somebody's got an alt against somebody, it would be easy if you're technologically advanced to create something to make someone look so bad. So I just wanted to share that with the committee, and hopefully, it's something that we could talk about going forward, and your input to helping us get some legislation that would be so valuable. Thank you so much.
Great question, thank you. So there is technology which helps. You can do cryptographic proofs of origins. So a camera, while it's taking pictures or video, can sign the feed and it's authenticated. The problem is not just technology, it's the humans. There is a non-zero percentage of population who is sure the planet is flat. No amount of pictures or videos will change that. And with deepfakes, the only positive thing I can say is it gives you a certain degree of plausible deniability when they catch you in a real bad situation.
All right, next we have Rep. Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually do not have a question. I just very much appreciative of the robust discussion. Thank you, sir.
All right, next is Rep. McPherson.
Yes, if you'll just indulge me just a second, it sounds like from a country boy standpoint here that, we can probably talk about some legislation that will help put some buffers in place and some things, but truthfully, we're in war. We're going to be at war. We're constantly in war. If you don't think our country's at war with lots of things going on every day, we probably wouldn't want to know what's going on behind the scenes to keep us safe every day. So the only way to win war is to go at it as aggressive as you can. So it sounds like to me that we've just got to go at this as aggressive as we can and make sure that the bad actors don't outdo the good actors. Is that, and I understand that the intelligent part of that is once you release something, it's kind of like what you said a while ago, when you ask a genie for a wish, you better watch what you ask for, because sometimes if you'll look at that, you don't know what that means. You have to explore all the ask before you do the asking. So it just sounds like we have to be as aggressive as we can to make sure we keep this at bay. Is that?
So if we're talking about tools, obviously whoever has better tools will win in a war. We're seeing it in Ukrainian conflict with better drones, better communication satellites, and so on. But the moment we switch to an agent, a super intelligent agent, it doesn't matter who summoned the demons. If China invites aliens or Russians invite aliens or we invite them, it's the same aliens who are going to come, and what they do is beyond our control.
Sounds like we just have to have a better demon.
I don't think anyone will win. Demon wars will be, just a casualty of that conflict.
Thank you.
All right, and next is Senator Howe.
And thank you for being here today. So much of our lives are coupled together, interrelated, fully integrated, using the internet and other means. Is there any discussion being had in this arena where we may have to decouple and separate certain parts of what we do and how we operate, like separating the financial system? Build a firewall is the only way that I can understand how to do. Is there any discussion about how to separate certain things that we do to isolate things from some of the potentially harmful effects of AI? I may not answer my question or ask my question very well. But
so there is some work on privacy, making sure the systems are not training on something they should not be training on. There is also research taking place on direct human-brain-computer interfaces. Basically, a computer would be able to see what you are thinking directly. So that has obvious implications for First Amendment, for privacy laws, and there is some proposed legislation for protecting privacy of thought, not just speech, but thinking freedom, but nothing particularly with separating one department within the government from AI infrastructure comes to mind right now.
Not necessarily maybe in the government, just within our lives or anything. I just wondered if there was any way that...
If you want to keep something private, don't put it on the internet. Don't digitize it. Write it with a pen and paper and then burn it.
So did you use AI to hear me tell my kids that over and over? Is that you repeating that? Thank you for your time.
Thank you again for your testimony. I think we got all the questions asked. Again, thank you for your testimony. I know you got a busy time. And actually, again, like I said, we had the other side come and talk to us, and thanks to Rep. Grossberg that he brought you up. And one thing that did strike me really interesting about our first presenters was they kept talking about human bias in AI, which raised my antennas. And then shortly after that, I did see an article which says, what happens when hackers talk AI into doing bad things? And it's happening. So again, we'll try to get wrap our arms around this, our heads around this, and I do believe this is a nonpartisan, bipartisan issue. I look forward to working with people on my committee to figure out what we need to do, how we need to do this. I look for your input. I look forward to legislation, but this is something if we don't do anything about, one day we may wish we had. So thank you very much for your time today, sir. And I knew this would generate a lot of questions and look forward to as we go forward with this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to end up on a much lighter note here at the end. And thank you for being patient. Kenergy Energy project update. Would you please approach the table, introduce yourself for the record, and please proceed. When you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Charlotte Wells with Big Rivers Electric.
I'm Melissa Hagan.
Tim Lindahl.
Well, first I want to thank you, Chairman Pratt, for giving us the opportunity to provide this update today. I'm Charlotte Wells, Director of Legislative Affairs and Government Relations for Big Rivers Electric Corporation. Big Rivers is an electric cooperative generation and transmission utility headquartered in Owensboro, Kentucky, and serving 22 counties in West Kentucky. In September of 2020, I, along with members of our, or representatives of our member owner, Kenergy Corp., sat before you to discuss what was at the time a great need for Kentucky citizens. At the time, NRECA had conducted a business and technology report that ranked Kentucky as the 8th worst state in the nation for broadband availability. So as electric cooperatives in other states were stepping up to lead the charge in rural connectivity, Kentucky law yet had to catch up in the terms of the digital divide. Thanks to the leadership of Representative Pratt, this body took its first step toward closing that gap by establishing the Broadband Deployment Fund during the 2020 general session. The next year, thanks to Representative Reed, who I don't see anymore, we took another significant step by not only funding the program, but also allowing regulated electric cooperatives in Kentucky to make capital investments in affiliates for the purpose of broadband deployment. Additional funding was appropriated again in 2022, and a pole replacement fund was established, and for all of this, I just want to say thank you. Since passage of House Bill 320 in 2021, Kenergy has embarked on a broadband deployment project that will literally bring service to thousands of unserved and underserved Kentuckians. With me today is Tim Lindahl, who joined Kenergy as CEO in March of this year. Tim has more than 28 years of experience in the agricultural, information technology, and energy industries. He has worked for rural electric cooperatives for more than 15 years and also led technology groups in Colorado, assisted Nebraska in establishing its state office of broadband, and managed a cooperative who deployed broadband to rural parts of Kansas. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tim. I'm going to let him give you an update on how Kenergy's project is progressing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Again, I'm Tim Lindahl, President and CEO of Kenergy. We're a member-owned, not-for-profit cooperative headquartered in Henderson, Kentucky. We provide energy and other services that really improve the lives of the communities we serve and those that live and work in nearly the 60,000 homes and businesses and other services in 14 counties of this great Commonwealth. I'm thrilled to be here along with Charla and Melissa, one of our member owners, who you'll hear from in a second, to share the story of broadband expansion with you, to thank you for enabling the folks of Kentucky to finally have access to this critical service, and for allowing us to have additional infrastructure to enhance our electric grid, for providing greater economic opportunity, health, social connection, and the many other great things broadband can do for our communities. I want to take a quick step back to the 1930s, where our country saw a technology called electricity that was really improving the lives of those that mainly lived in the urban areas of the time. This game-changing product greatly enhanced the economic well-being of the communities that had the infrastructure to utilize. It became a great need to exist and flourish in the modern society of that time. Yet it would not be profitable for any corporations to help those that were left out, which were the folks that occupied the majority of the landmass in the United States. The Rural Electrification Act of 1936 became an enabling tool for communities to solve this challenge in their own ways in their own areas by creating not-for-profit organizations known as cooperatives, organizations that are owned and governed by the people that they serve. This highly successful act has over time allowed electricity to reach every person who wants it at a price that's highly competitive with, or even less than, the significantly profitable populated areas of the country. Kenergy is a member-owned and not-for-profit cooperative that it exists today as a result of these people coming together in the communities of Western Kentucky, leaning on the foundational parts of the Rural Electrification Act and the accompanying Rural Electrification Administration. In fact, one of the farms we serve was the first farm in Kentucky to receive energy under this arrangement. Some 50 years after the REA was established, a new technology began to emerge in cities of America. This started to further improve the lives and communities by connecting people in a new way. The internet from its fledgling start quickly gained traction in the 90s, and as we closed the century, had evolved into the broadband we desire and need today. This enabling technology quickly outpaced the ability to have adequate service outside of the profitable urban areas. Each expansion further eroded the business case for those that were left behind. For the last 30 years, it has been my mission and my passion to find ways to bring these critical services to the underserved areas of this great country. And after 30 years, it's happening because of your work. The leaders of our communities have again come together and identified the way to finally solve this issue in non-profitable areas, which is to do just like was done in the 1930s, to have the community own the infrastructure to provide this critical service where there's not a need to profit, but only cover costs, and where no person is left behind. The benefits today even outpace the benefits of yesteryear, as we now are creating a nexus of energy and communication where the total will be greater than the sum of the parts in managing our 21st century energy grid. Like the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, the enabling legislation that you passed via HB 320 made it possible for electric cooperatives to install the infrastructure at the request of our members, infrastructure that is owned by our members, which make up the local communities we serve. I'm elated, along with the many folks in our communities, that now have robust access to service up to 2 gigabit bidirectional broadband internet at a consumer cost on par with and even lower than many folks in urban areas. Our system can be scaled up to 10 gigabits and beyond, adapting to any future needs. It's also designed to perform as advertised. Your enabling legislation will go down in history as the REA moment for rural broadband in many parts of this Commonwealth. It took us about 20 years to build the electric infrastructure to reach 90% of the homes after the REA was passed. It is our goal, with proper funding, to have fiber to every home that we electrically serve in the next 3 years, building 7,000 miles of fiber infrastructure. A project of this magnitude and speed will be one of the fastest fiber deployments to date in this country. To move this fast and to build a long-term sustainable network, though, it's critical that we have proper funding to see it through. Without funding, it'll still be our goal to reach every home and business, but it may take much longer than the planned 3 years. Going into the project, our communities had about 23,000 underserved and unserved homes based on FCC maps. In reality, as you'll hear from Melissa in a little bit, it was much more. After connecting our first home earlier this year, we have now connected about 2,000 more in the months since, and we have 8,000 homes in the queue. The speed of this deployment cannot be done without proper access to capital. The combination of the grants we've received from local, state, and federal governments, in conjunction with our banking partners and our internet service provider, Connexon, and yes again, the Rural Electrification Administration, now known as the Rural Utility Service, are the only way this project can be completed quickly, safely, and most importantly, in a way that's sustainable for generations, like the rural electric grid we enjoy some 90 years after it was born. Thank you for your role ensuring funding is prudently spent on projects that leave no person behind, that allows for complete investment into our system, that allows for a self-sustainable system, and that can be paired with other uses, such as managing our electric grid, while providing the highest level of benefit to people who use it. When complete, we will not leave a home or business unserved that desires this service, making broadband available to all our homes and businesses in our 14-county area. Our partnership with Connexon allows us to minimize the financial and other risks associated with this project, ensure the costs of the projects are not borne by our electric ratepayers. This partnership is critical to the success of this project and critical to the long-term sustainability. In the future, when Kenergy receives any excess revenue from this initiative, that excess will be invested back into the system, used to enhance the operation of the system, and given back to the member owner customers of the system. The economic activity this project is currently generating in our region is tremendous. Presently, we have over 130 additional people in our communities working on this project. We're utilizing companies that are located in our communities and are members of Kenergy, such as Irvin Cable Construction. Like what was started in the 1930s with bringing light to rural Kentucky, we are again lighting up the rural areas through the fiber, empowering the people and businesses of the communities to increase their success and ultimately make our lives better. And for this, we say thank you. I'd now like to introduce Melissa Hagan. Melissa is one of our member owners who has recently received broadband service over our fiber system. And she'll talk briefly about the historic broadband struggles and what getting fiber means to them. She works from her rural home and, along with her husband and children, rely on the internet for their work, education, and general quality of life. The Hagans were in an area where mapping said that they should have good broadband access, and they were considered adequately served. But they had tried nearly every internet option over the years, and none would live up to the need or what the FCC maps would show.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you and tell you thank you. As most of you know, in March of 2020, the world as we knew it halted. Luckily, due to advances in technology, many people were able to begin working from home, and Zoom meetings became the new normal. I remember sitting in my cubicle at work, watching my coworkers pack up all the materials needed to create an office at home. They were excited to ditch any commute time and wear pajamas from the waist down. I'm sure everybody would have been excited about that. While I was uneasy already at the thought of worldwide pandemic breaking out, my worries didn't stop there. I wasn't packing anything in my cubicle, and there would be no home office for me. When my husband and I moved in 2017 to a home with land, the only downfall was the inability to obtain internet. Granted, at the time, it was because we were bummed due to lack of Netflix, but in 2020, it went from a bummer to a fear. Schools and workplaces were shutting down at a rapid rate, and everyone was moving to remote learning and working, but that wasn't an option for my household. I tried numerous times to get anyone, to give us internet at our home, but each time was met with the same response. I'm sorry, but your home's too far out of our network. From March of 2020 to July of 2020, I remained physically in office, knowing the potential consequences of exposure. My kids were dropped off each morning to a grandparent in order to continue their schoolwork online, again risking exposure to an elderly grandparent. But we had no other options. So in July of 2020, we were able to find a company willing to provide internet using the cell phone towers. I was so grateful. But granted, anytime you sneeze or the wind blows, the internet would kick off. But it felt better than nothing. We were paying double what people we knew were paying for a fraction of the speed. Thanks to each of you and the folks at Kenergy, we now have internet that offers the same benefits of those who live in town without having to give up our dream of living in the country. I tell you all of this as a way to say thank you. Thank you for being the voice for my family in a room where big decisions were being made that I wasn't a part of. What you did, passing a bill making internet more accessible in rural Kentucky, has opened doors that otherwise weren't even windows. I'm still with the same company celebrating year 14. However, thanks to reliable internet, I'm able to have a fully remote work from home position, making a significant amount more annually than I would otherwise be making. I hope this is a reminder that when you speak on items that may not directly impact you or your family, you're being a voice for people like me. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And we do have some questions. Senator Mills?
Are y'all done with your presentation? Okay, good. A couple questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
First is, I noticed that you missed telling us how much state funds you've received for your project. So how has House Bill 320 helped you, and how much funding have you received?
From the state side of things, we have not received any funding yet. However, there is a pending funding application that we're still awaiting the results of.
Okay, so there is a pending one. And then the next question is, could you expand on just a little bit about your costs per home? I was under the assumption that the program the application that you submitted had some of the lowest costs per home in the state. Is that correct on the construction project? Yeah, so I can't do the math quite quickly in my head, but I can tell you that our budget for the project's about $150 million, and we will pass
approximately 60,000 metering points, all of which are not homes, so about 50,000 homes and businesses. So probably $3,000 a home and business.
Okay. Very good.
I guess I can do the math that quick.
Yeah, there you go. You just did it. I think that's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Boswell.
Well, thank you. I'm from Davis County, so this is part of my group here. You know, years ago, there was a large coal company in our area, Green Coal Company, and essentially went out of business. And they were selling all their ground for just a really, really low price, $100 an acre. They offered to let me buy some of that, but I said, there's no way, because it doesn't have any services. It doesn't have water, it doesn't have electricity, it doesn't have anything. Over the years, that ground's been bought up by people, really, literally pennies on the dollars, essentially, compared to other property. And now, when those people get out there in those rural areas, they're wanting these services. And so I'm just not sure, and maybe you can explain to me, how do you determine, you know, how far out you can go just to service a few people? Because the whole basis of our planning and zoning laws and everything else is to serve the highest number of people with the least amount of cost. So is this something y'all having to deal with?
Yeah, so the mission of the cooperative program was to leave no person behind. Right. And the reason we did that is because every time you serve the low-hanging fruit, it makes it incrementally harder and more expensive to serve that last person at the end of the line. We've taken the same approach with the broadband side of things, and we still do it with energy. Is, you know, we will leave no person behind. We will, you know, the cooperative way is to blend the cost of the infrastructure and socialize that among all of the membership. It's a philosophy, but I believe it's one that's very valuable in solving existing things. Now, I think there's a whole nother discussion when there's nothing there, and what's that incremental cost and who should bear that cost to expand to something that isn't there already. And that's another level of discussion that we probably need to have at some point in time.
Thank you. I will say that my son and his family have bought a piece of property, a beautiful piece of property, just outside the city of Owensboro. They do not have broadband, and it's difficult in this age if you have children and you don't have it. So I'm very supportive of what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Ms. Wells, if my memory is correct, I think in 2020, one of the things you guys came asking for was the fact that as a utility, you could not leverage any of your assets to run broadband. Is that correct?
Correct. So
Yep.
the
Yes,
way
ma'am.
the statute was written, we could not use any electric funds, and that was from the PSC could grant a waiver, and we actually had over 500 members request that. They did not, so that's where you guys took action and were able to write into the statute now in 278 that the electric cooperative can leverage up to 25% of its total assets for capital investment into the affiliate. So we still, it still requires a subsidiary or a partner, as in this case is Connexon, to actually be the broadband provider because it is a non-regulated product. But Kenergy and the other regulated co-ops can now leverage their actual funds. And the reason for that is when you go to make an application and you have a brand new subsidiary that has no history and no credit, nobody's going to loan you the money. So they needed the backing from the electric side, but yet our law was written so that they couldn't do that. So that's how the process works now.
I think I followed you out of that meeting and said you want to run broadband, but you can't. Wow. And again, what you said about mapping does surprise me, and that's a challenge for all of broadband is to try to get it out. Is mapping's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge, without doubt. And the best part about, since you are energy cooperative, one of the things I hear most from the broadband providers is pole attachment permits and pole attachment fees. You all own the poles. You give your own permits. So hopefully you will be able to move faster than some of the other broadband providers. And I'm glad we were able to do this and get broadband out to the unserved and underserved areas of your area. So thank you very much for your presentation. Again, like I said, good job. And the fact, I think it's a win anytime we get broadband out to the underserved areas of Kentucky. And you're right. Don't get me wrong. At my house, Amazon or somebody is dropping off a package every day. My wife keeps them in business. Make no doubt about it. So it is as important as having a good road in front of your house, without doubt. And if we do more remote work, it's going to become more and more important. So thank you guys for your presentation. And unless we have any more business, we'd like to move for adjournment. So moved.